In a world chasing perfection, we forget the most sacred truth. Peace begins within. Buddhism teaches that self-love isn't selfish, it's essential. This video will guide you through the timeless wisdom of the Buddha to help you stop the self-hate, embrace your imperfections, and rediscover the joy of being you. We suffer most not because of what others say to us, but because of what we say to ourselves. Every day, we carry a storm of self-criticism, guilt, regret, and shame, and we let it define who we are. We call ourselves names silently in the privacy of our minds. We look in the mirror and see what's missing, not what's present. We live with our own harshest judgments and call it truth. But the Buddhist path begins with one essential insight. The self we criticize is not fixed, not solid, not eternal. What we take to be ourself is a process, constantly changing, constantly evolving. If that is so, why do we cling so tightly to the idea that we are not enough? The first key to inner peace is to stop believing in the labels we give ourselves. These labels are mental constructions, ideas imposed by society, family, past experiences, and our own mind's conditioning. I'm not lovable. I always mess things up. I'm too this. I'm not enough that. These are thoughts, not truths. Yet when we repeat them enough, they start to feel like facts. In Buddhist philosophy, there is no unchanging self. This is the doctrine of anatta, or not self. You are not your anger. You are not your mistakes. You are not your sadness. These are impermanent states that arise and pass away. So if they are temporary, why let them define your identity? We must be very careful about the narratives we build. Our minds have incredible power, and they tend to confirm whatever we believe. If we believe we are unworthy, our minds will find evidence for that. If we believe we are shameful, we will interpret every failure as confirmation. But when we understand that identity is not fixed, we realize we can step away from the story and write a new one. And we begin to see that we can forgive ourselves, not just for what we've done, but for what we believed we were. This leads us to the second truth. Mistakes are not failures. They are signs of growth. The fear of making mistakes often freezes us, but the Buddha himself walked through confusion, extremes, and suffering before reaching enlightenment. He tried asceticism to the point of starvation. He believed self-denial would lead to awakening. It didn't. That mistake taught him the middle path. Without that misstep, he would not have found the truth. So why do we believe we must be perfect to be at peace? Perfection is not the goal. Awareness is, growth is, compassion is. We fall, we get up, we make mistakes, we learn. Every scar on the heart is a lesson. Every regret, a pointer. Our mistakes are not a mark of unworthiness. They are evidence that we are alive, evolving, and trying. And this life is not about arriving somewhere perfect and still. It is about walking the path with honesty. A mistake is not the opposite of success. It is the soil that success grows in. The lotus blooms from the mud, not from pristine marble. And when we realize this, we can stop punishing ourselves. We can stop replaying the past like a punishment reel in our minds. We can say, yes, I failed, but I am not a failure. I am still worthy of love. I am still worthy of peace. But as long as we keep criticizing ourselves with cruelty, we will remain trapped. That brings us to the third principle. Stop negative criticism. The Buddha taught the practice of right speech, and it applies not just to how we speak to others, but also how we speak internally. Self-talk is one of the most powerful forces shaping our emotional world. Harsh inner speech is a form of mental violence. When we say, I hate myself, I'm so stupid, I'll never be enough, we are planting seeds of suffering in our own mind. Criticism does not motivate change, it enforces fear. Compassion is what opens the door to transformation. So instead of saying, I'm lazy, ask, what am I avoiding? What pain am I trying not to feel? Instead of saying, I'm a mess, ask, what does this chaos teach me about what I need right now? We don't heal by shaming ourselves. We heal by listening, gently, without judgment. And we must also be careful not to project this inner criticism outward. When we judge others, we create a world in which perfection is demanded but never delivered. We think, she's too much, or he's not enough. And somewhere inside, we apply the same standard to ourselves. The more we criticize others, the more we build a reality in which no one, including us, is safe from rejection. The less we criticize, the more space we create for humanity, in others and in ourselves. This leads naturally to the fourth truth. Imperfection is not a flaw, it is the very essence of life. Walk into the forest, look around, nothing is symmetrical. Trees bend, leaves are torn, rocks are cracked, and yet everything belongs. There is no oak tree wishing it had straighter branches. There is no river ashamed of its twists. Nature does not apologize for its imperfection. It flows, it grows, it accepts. In the same way, we must begin to understand that our imperfections are not problems to fix, they are opportunities to grow. They are invitations to authenticity. The Japanese philosophy of wabi-sabi teaches us to find beauty in the imperfect, the transient, the incomplete, the bowl with a crack, mended with gold, the worn edges of a wooden table, the aging lines on a face that has lived. There is no shame in imperfection, only depth. In fact, it is our imperfections that connect us. A perfect person is unreachable, but an imperfect one is real. It is through shared flaws, shared struggles, shared vulnerability that we experience love. You are not here to become perfect. You are here to become real. And real is always enough. But loving ourselves is not a one-time decision. It is a daily practice. That's the fifth truth. You don't wait until you feel love to act with love. You practice love, and the feeling may follow. The Buddhist path teaches that transformation comes through consistent practice, not sudden emotion. Every day we sit, we breathe, we observe, and in that space we begin to shift. So what does self-love look like as a practice? It looks like waking up and saying, I choose kindness today. It looks like placing a hand on your heart during a difficult moment and whispering, I am doing my best. It looks like forgiving yourself when the mind says you are unworthy. It looks like resting when you're tired, saying no when something doesn't feel right, choosing truth over people-pleasing, choosing presence over perfection. And when old patterns return, as they will, you don't judge yourself. You breathe, you notice, you return. Self-love is not about never falling, it's about how you rise when you do. We must also address a common fear, that self-love is selfish. It's not. Selfishness is when the ego takes center stage. When we need others to praise us, agree with us, validate us constantly because we lack our own inner anchor. That is insecurity, not love. True self-love, rooted in mindfulness and compassion, creates space for others. It softens judgment, it increases patience, it allows generosity to flourish. When you are no longer obsessed with proving your worth, you become more available to support others. You listen better. You give without resentment. You forgive more easily. So don't confuse loving yourself with being self-centered. When you love yourself well, you love others better. The Buddha said, you yourself, as much as anybody in the entire universe, deserve your love and affection. Not because you are special, but because you are human, because suffering is real, because healing is possible. And when you treat yourself with care, you become an instrument of peace in a noisy world. But how do we begin? How do we return to this love when we feel so far away from it? We begin with mindfulness. Mindfulness is not just a technique, it is a way of being. It means noticing what we are saying to ourselves without immediately believing it. It means catching the voice of self-hate and saying, I see you, but I will not follow you today. It means slowing down long enough to witness the truth beneath the noise. Mindfulness reveals that beneath every harsh word we speak to ourselves, there is usually a wound. Maybe it was the voice of a parent who was never satisfied. Maybe it was a teacher who mocked us, a bully, a culture that told us we are only valuable if we are perfect. The voice in your head may not even be your own, but you have the power to speak back, not with anger, but with clarity. I am not your story. I am not your shame. I am free. And each time we do this, the voice gets softer. Each time we return to the breath, to the body, to the heart, we reclaim space. And slowly, our minds become more peaceful, our hearts more open. Then we practice compassion. Real compassion is not soft or passive. It is fierce. It means standing by yourself when things get hard. It means saying, even if I fail today, I will not abandon myself. This is metta, loving kindness, and it must begin within. We can practice metta meditation, starting with ourselves. May I be well, may I be safe, may I be happy, may I live with ease. Then we expand this wish to others. But it starts here, inside, with you. As you practice, don't expect instant change. The mind is like a wild elephant. It resists control. But with gentle training, it learns to settle. Keep showing up, keep offering love, even when it's hard, especially when it's hard. Over time, your relationship with yourself changes. You no longer see yourself as a project to fix, but as a friend to care for. You stop chasing worthiness and start living it. You become less reactive, more patient. You stop needing validation from the outside because you've built a sanctuary on the inside. And this sanctuary is not built with perfection. It is built with presence, with breath, with patience, with self-forgiveness. You realize that your value is not tied to your productivity, your beauty, your performance. It is inherent, unshakable, timeless. In this space, joy returns. Not the fleeting high of external success, but the quiet joy of being enough. You feel it in your chest, in your breath, in your step. You start to smile more easily, cry more honestly, listen more deeply, and live more freely. Because you are no longer living against yourself, you are living with yourself, walking beside yourself, holding your own hand, and that is the beginning of peace.